A cool autumn wind drifted through the streets of Bozeman, Montana. The sky had already turned dark, and a thin layer of mist hovered above the empty sidewalks as the city slowly settled into the quiet hours of the night. Ethan Carter was one of the last people to leave the Montana Arts Center each evening. At 28, Ethan was a tall man with broad shoulders and strong features shaped by years of practical work rather than comfort. His dark brown hair was usually kept short and neat, though it often became slightly messy during long shifts. A faint line along his jaw hinted at an old scar from his teenage years, a reminder of a ranch accident that had left him with a deeper appreciation for caution and responsibility. He rarely wore anything flashy. Most days he could be found in simple work clothes, carrying cables, testing microphones, or adjusting speakers before performances. People liked Ethan, not because he was loud or charismatic. Quite the opposite. He was the kind of man who listened more than he spoke, the kind who remembered small details about people and quietly helped without expecting recognition. Yet despite being surrounded by performers, musicians, and audiences every day, Ethan often felt strangely alone. 5 years earlier, his father had passed away after a long battle with illness. Since then, Ethan had become the primary support for his mother, who lived on a small property outside town. The responsibility had forced him to put many personal dreams aside. While his friends married, started families, and built lives of their own, Ethan focused on work and obligations. He rarely complained, but some nights, when the auditorium emptied and silence filled the building, he wondered if life had quietly moved forward without him. That particular evening was no different. The final rehearsal had ended nearly an hour earlier. Most employees had gone home. Only the distant hum of ventilation systems echoed through the enormous building. Ethan sat alone near the sound control booth, reviewing equipment reports for the next week's performances. Then he heard it. A piano. Soft, gentle, beautiful. The notes floated through the darkness from the main stage. At first he assumed one of the performers had forgotten something and returned. But as the melody continued, curiosity pulled him from his chair. He followed the sound through the dim hallway and stepped quietly into the auditorium. The stage lights were low. Only a single spotlight illuminated the grand piano. And sitting at that piano was Olivia Bennett. Even before Ethan knew her name, almost everyone in Montana knew hers. At 26, Olivia Bennett was considered one of the most talented pianists in the region. She possessed a natural elegance that seemed effortless. Her long chestnut hair flowed over her shoulders in soft waves. Her fair skin reflected the warm glow of the stage lights, and her green eyes carried a quiet depth that often made people pause during conversations. Audiences admired her beauty, but fellow musicians respected her discipline even more. Yet as Ethan watched from the back row, something surprised him. The woman performing on stage was very different from the confident artist people applauded during concerts. Here, alone in the empty hall, Olivia appeared almost fragile. Her posture was relaxed, her expression thoughtful. There was no audience to impress, no photographers, no applause, just a young woman and a piano. The piece ended. A sudden burst of static erupted from one of the stage monitors. Olivia immediately stopped playing. She frowned and tapped a few keys again. The sound crackled once more. Ethan sighed. Technical problems. His specialty. He walked toward the stage. Looks like that monitor is having a bad night. Olivia turned quickly. For a moment, she looked startled. Then she smiled. The smile transformed her entire face. Warm, genuine, unexpected. And here I thought the piano suddenly decided it hated me. Ethan laughed. Trust me, speakers are much more dramatic than pianos. Olivia stepped aside while Ethan examined the equipment. Within minutes, he located a damaged cable connection hidden beneath the stage platform. There, he said after tightening the connection. Try it now. Olivia placed her fingers on the keys. The melody returned, clear and flawless. She looked up. Thank you. Just doing my job. Most people would have gone home already. Most people are smarter than me. That made her laugh again. For reasons Ethan couldn't explain, he found himself smiling too. The conversation lasted only a few minutes. Nothing important. Nothing memorable. At least that's what he told himself later. But when he finally left the auditorium that night, he realized something unusual had happened. For the first time in a very long while, he was actually looking forward to tomorrow. And high above the quiet stage, hidden behind Olivia Bennett's gentle smile, a secret remained carefully locked away. A secret that would eventually change both of their lives. The weeks after that first conversation passed more quickly than Ethan Carter expected. At first, he and Olivia Bennett only exchanged a few words after rehearsals. Sometimes it was about a faulty microphone. Sometimes about a concert schedule. Sometimes about nothing important at all. Yet somehow those brief conversations became the moments Ethan found himself looking forward to most. As autumn deepened across Montana, a quiet routine formed between them. After evening performances, they occasionally stopped at a small coffee shop near the Arts Center. The owner, Martha Green, was a cheerful woman in her late 50s with silver blonde hair cut just below her ears and warm brown eyes that always seemed to notice more than she said. Years earlier, she had lost her husband to cancer, an experience that left her gentler with lonely people and quicker to recognize hearts trying not to be hurt. Whenever Ethan and Olivia walked in together, Martha greeted them with the same knowing smile. The usual table by the window? Neither of them ever corrected her. The conversations grew longer. Olivia spoke about music. Ethan spoke about sound. They debated favorite composers, shared embarrassing childhood stories, talked about places they hoped to visit someday. One evening, Olivia admitted she wanted to perform in Vienna before turning 30. Another night, Ethan confessed that he had once dreamed of owning a recording studio where young musicians could create music without worrying about money. "Why didn't you do it?" Olivia asked. Ethan stirred his coffee slowly. Life happened. The answer was simple, but Olivia seemed to understand there was more behind it. Months passed. Winter approached. Their friendship slowly settled into something deeper. One Saturday evening, they drove to Clearwater Lake, a quiet stretch of water outside town where the mountains reflected across the surface like painted glass. The sun was setting behind the distant ridges, turning the sky gold and crimson. They sat on a weathered wooden bench near the shoreline. For a while, neither spoke. The silence felt comfortable, rare, the kind of silence two people only share when they trust each other. Ethan glanced toward Olivia. The fading sunlight touched her hair, making the chestnut strands glow softly. For a moment, he forgot everything else. The cold air, the lake, the passing cars. All he noticed was her, and that realization unsettled him. Because suddenly he understood something he had been avoiding for months. He was falling in love, not with the pianist everyone admired, not with the beautiful woman audiences applauded. He was falling in love with the person who laughed at terrible jokes, who drank coffee too late at night, who closed her eyes whenever she listened to music she loved. The realization should have felt frightening. Instead, it felt peaceful, as though his heart had quietly made the decision long before his mind caught up. But the closer they became, the more Ethan noticed something strange. Olivia never spoke about her family. Not once. She talked about concerts, teachers, music schools, travel, but never family. Never childhood memories involving parents. Never siblings. Never relatives. Nothing. At first, Ethan assumed she was simply private. Then he started noticing other things. Whenever conversations drifted toward the future, Olivia subtly changed direction. When friends discussed marriage, she became quiet. When someone mentioned children during a rehearsal break, she suddenly found a reason to leave the room. When Ethan casually asked where she lived, she only smiled. Somewhere not very exciting. Then she changed the subject. Again, and again, and again. One snowy evening, they walked together through downtown Bozeman after a concert. Store lights reflected across fresh snow. The streets were peaceful, beautiful. Ethan felt the urge to finally ask the question that had been growing inside him for weeks. "Olivia." She looked up. What are you so afraid of?" Her footsteps stopped. For a brief second, genuine fear crossed her face. Not annoyance. Not surprise. Fear. The expression disappeared almost immediately. But Ethan had seen it. She forced a smile. "I don't know what you mean." "You do." The wind carried snowflakes between them. Neither moved. Neither looked away. For the first time since meeting her, Ethan felt as though he had reached a door hidden deep inside her life. A door she had spent years keeping locked. Olivia lowered her eyes. Her voice became softer. "Some things are easier to leave in the past." Ethan wanted to ask more. He wanted to tell her that whatever it was couldn't possibly matter that much. But something in her expression stopped him. Pain lived there. Old pain. The kind people learn to hide because explaining it hurts too much. So instead, he simply nodded. They continued walking, side by side, neither speaking. Yet as Ethan listened to the sound of their footsteps through the snow, he became certain of one thing. Olivia wasn't hiding because she didn't trust him. She was hiding because she was terrified of what would happen if he finally learned the truth. And somewhere deep inside her guarded smile, a secret waited patiently for the day it could no longer remain hidden. The following week, Olivia Bennet became quieter than usual. Not distant, not cold, just distracted. Ethan noticed it immediately. The small pauses during conversations lasted longer. Her smile seemed more fragile. More than once, he caught her staring out a window as though she were arguing with thoughts she could not escape. Then on a Thursday afternoon, a message appeared on his phone. "Can we meet tomorrow evening? The park near the Arts Center. There's something I need to tell you." Ethan read the message 3 times. Something about it made his stomach tighten. The next evening arrived colder than expected. Autumn had painted the trees in deep shades of gold and amber, and fallen leaves drifted across the walking paths of Riverside Park. This was the same park where he and Olivia had shared their first real conversation months earlier. Ethan arrived first. As the sun disappeared behind the mountains, he spotted her walking toward him. Immediately, he knew something was wrong. Olivia's eyes were red, not from lack of sleep, from crying. Her usually perfect appearance seemed forgotten tonight. A few strands of chestnut hair had escaped from behind her ears. Her shoulders looked tense, as though carrying a weight she could no longer hold alone. "Thank you for coming," she said softly. Ethan stood. "You don't have to thank me." For a moment neither spoke. The silence stretched between them. Finally Olivia sat on a nearby bench and stared at the ground. "I've been trying to tell you for months." Ethan lowered himself onto the bench beside her. "Tell me what?" Her fingers tightened together. When she finally spoke, her voice trembled. "A long time ago, before I became a pianist people recognized, before I moved here," she stopped, took a breath, then continued. "I got married when I was very young." The words hung in the cool evening air. Ethan listened quietly. Olivia stared straight ahead. "I thought I was in love." A sad smile appeared briefly. The kind of love people believe will fix everything. Her smile vanished. It didn't. She explained how the marriage had fallen apart within only a few years. How the man she trusted slowly became someone she barely recognized. How promises became arguments. How arguments became distance. Eventually he left. Not dramatically, not with shouting. Just one day at a time until there was almost nothing left. Then one day he was simply gone. Olivia's voice cracked. "I haven't seen him in years." Ethan felt anger toward a man he had never met. But he remained silent. She wasn't finished. There was more. Much more. Her eyes filled with tears. And when he left, she swallowed hard. "I wasn't alone." Ethan's heart began to race. For the first time, Olivia turned toward him. "I had a son." The words came out almost as a whisper. "A little boy." Tears rolled down her cheeks. "His name is Noah." For several seconds Ethan said nothing. Not because he was shocked. Not because he was disappointed. But because suddenly every missing piece made sense. Every avoided conversation. Every nervous smile. Every locked door. Everything. Olivia looked away, unable to meet his eyes. "He's 6 years old." She laughed bitterly. "There it is. The secret. The reason I never invited you home. The reason I never talked about family." She wiped her eyes. "I wanted you to know before this went any further." Ethan remained still, listening. Olivia continued speaking, each word sounding heavier than the last. "You're kind, Ethan. You're honest. You deserve someone without all this baggage." Her voice broke completely. "You deserve someone whose life isn't complicated." For a moment, she looked like she expected him to stand up and leave. Perhaps others already had. Perhaps this wasn't the first time she had watched hope disappear from someone's face. "I would understand if you walked away." The words barely escaped her lips. Silence followed. A long silence. The kind that makes people afraid. Olivia stared at the ground, waiting, preparing herself. Then Ethan smiled. A small smile. Gentle. Steady. The kind that carried no judgment. No hesitation. No fear. "Olivia." She slowly lifted her head. "I don't love part of you." A tear slipped down her cheek. Ethan continued. "I love all of you." Her breath caught. He moved slightly closer. "If Noah is the most important part of your life," his voice softened, "then I want to care about him too." Olivia stared at him, unable to speak. Ethan shook his head. "Your past doesn't scare me. You being a mother doesn't change how I see you." He smiled again. "If anything, It tells me how strong you are." The tears came faster now. Years of fear, years of shame, years of believing she would always be judged. Breaking apart one piece at a time, Ethan reached out and gently took her hand. "If Noah is part of your heart," his eyes never left hers, "then I'd like the chance to love him like my own son someday." Olivia's composure finally shattered. She began crying openly. Not from sadness. Not anymore. For the first time in many years, she felt something she had almost forgotten was possible. Acceptance. Complete acceptance. And as the last sunlight disappeared behind the mountains, Olivia leaned forward and wrapped her arms around Ethan. Neither of them spoke, because there were moments when words became unnecessary, and this was one of them. The days after Olivia's confession felt different. Not awkward, not uncertain, different in the way a storm feels after finally breaking. For months, something invisible had stood between them. Now it was gone. Ethan no longer wondered why Olivia avoided certain conversations. He no longer searched for answers hidden behind her smiles. The truth was finally in the open. But there was one person he had not met yet. Noah. A week later, Olivia invited Ethan to a small community park on the edge of town. "He'll be there after school," she said nervously. Ethan noticed she seemed more anxious than she had during her confession. "You look terrified." Olivia laughed softly. "I might be." When they arrived, children were running across a soccer field while parents watched from nearby benches. Then Ethan saw him. Noah Bennett. The 6-year-old boy stood near a swing set wearing a red jacket that looked slightly too large for him. He had dark brown hair that refused to stay combed and curious gray-blue eyes that looked remarkably similar to Olivia's. His face carried a seriousness uncommon for a child his age. Not sadness. Caution. The kind of caution children develop when life teaches them too early that not everyone stays. Olivia waved. "Noah." The boy ran toward her immediately, then stopped when he noticed Ethan. His smile disappeared. His small shoulders stiffened. He simply stared. Olivia crouched beside him. "This is Ethan." Noah nodded politely. Nothing more. Ethan recognized the distance instantly. He didn't blame the boy. Trust was not something children owed adults. It was something adults earned. So instead of trying too hard, Ethan simply smiled. "Hi, Noah." The boy nodded again. "Hi." And that was the entire conversation. For now. Over the following weeks, Ethan never forced anything. He didn't try to become a father figure. He didn't buy expensive gifts. He didn't make promises. Instead, he simply showed up. Again, and again, and again. Sometimes they played catch with a baseball. Sometimes they walked through town after one of Olivia's rehearsals. Sometimes Ethan sat on a park bench while Noah enthusiastically explained topics only 6-year-old boys could find fascinating. One afternoon, Noah spent nearly 20 minutes explaining why dinosaurs would probably beat superheroes in a battle. Ethan listened seriously the entire time. At the end, Noah narrowed his eyes suspiciously. "You really listened." "Of course. Most grown-ups don't." Ethan shrugged. "Then most grown-ups are missing important information about dinosaurs." For the first time, Noah laughed. It was a small moment, but Olivia noticed. Every one of those moments mattered. A month later, Ethan took Noah fishing at a quiet river outside Bozeman. The boy spent more time asking questions than actually fishing. "Did you always work with music?" "No." "What did you want to be when you were little?" "A baseball player." Noah stared. "Really? I was terrible." The boy laughed so hard he nearly dropped his fishing rod. Little by little, the walls came down. Noah stopped calling Ethan Mr. Carter, then stopped calling him Ethan. Eventually, he simply talked to him as though he had always been there. One snowy Saturday evening, Olivia performed at a charity concert hosted by the Montana Arts Center. The auditorium was packed. Parents, students, musicians, local reporters. Noah sat beside Ethan in the second row. The boy wore a small navy blue jacket and spent most of the performance swinging his feet beneath his chair. On stage, Olivia played beautifully. The audience applauded after every piece. But Ethan found himself watching Noah almost as much as he watched Olivia. The boy looked proud. Every time his mother finished a song, he smiled. Halfway through the concert, Noah quietly tugged Ethan's sleeve. "Ethan." "Yeah, buddy." The boy hesitated. His eyes remained fixed on the stage. Then he asked the question, "Are you going to stay forever?" The words were simple, but Ethan understood their weight immediately. This wasn't a child asking about next week or next month. This was a little boy asking whether another important person was eventually going to leave. just like before. Ethan looked at him carefully, then smiled. If you'll let me, his voice remained calm. I'd like to stay. Noah stared at him for several seconds. Then, without warning, he wrapped both arms around Ethan's neck. The hug was sudden, tight, complete. Ethan hugged him back. Across the auditorium, Olivia had seen everything. Her hands froze above the piano. For a moment, she couldn't continue playing. Tears filled her eyes. Not because she was sad, because she finally understood something. Ethan had never been trying to win her heart alone. He had been making room for her entire world. And in that moment, watching her son hold on to him as though he belonged there, Olivia realized she wasn't the only person who had fallen in love. Noah had trusted him too. A year passed faster than any of them expected. Seasons changed. Concerts came and went. Snow melted from the Montana mountains and returned again. And somehow, through all those ordinary days, Ethan Carter never left. Not when life became busy. Not when Olivia's schedule became overwhelming. Not when Noah had difficult days. He simply stayed. The consistency mattered more than grand gestures ever could. Noah was 7 now, a little taller than before, though his dark hair remained just as impossible to control. He still asked endless questions and still carried the same curiosity that often exhausted adults. The difference was that he no longer watched Ethan with caution. He watched him with trust, the greatest gift a child could give. One spring afternoon, Ethan was helping Noah build a birdhouse in the backyard behind Olivia's small home. The house itself was modest, surrounded by pine trees and a white wooden fence. Nothing extravagant, nothing designed to impress, just a home filled with warmth. As Noah struggled to hold a piece of wood steady, he glanced up suddenly. Do you know something? Probably not, Ethan replied. Noah grinned. I think Mom smiles more now. Ethan laughed softly. I think you're right. The boy nodded proudly. I helped. Did you? Yep. Noah lowered his voice dramatically. I told her she should stop being scared. Ethan froze for a moment. Children often understood more than adults realized. Far more. That evening, after Noah had gone to bed, Olivia sat beside Ethan on the porch. The setting sun painted the mountains orange. For a while they simply listened to the wind moving through the trees. Then Olivia leaned against his shoulder. You know, she said quietly. A year ago I thought telling you the truth would be the end. Ethan looked down at her. And now, a smile appeared. Now I think it was the beginning. Several months later, Olivia received the biggest opportunity of her career. A renowned music organization selected her to perform as the featured pianist in Montana's largest classical music event of the year. The concert would attract journalists, critics, and music lovers from across the region. For weeks, she practiced relentlessly. Long hours, late nights, endless rehearsals. Yet whenever exhaustion appeared, she always found the same 2 people waiting for her afterward. Ethan and Noah. The night of the performance finally arrived. The concert hall was completely full. More than 800 people filled the seats beneath crystal chandeliers. The audience included musicians, business leaders, reporters, and visitors from neighboring states. Backstage, Olivia stood alone for a moment. Her heart pounded, not from fear of performing. She had done that hundreds of times. This felt different, more important, more personal. She glanced through a small opening in the curtain. There they were, front row, exactly where they promised they would be. Noah sat proudly in a small navy suit. Beside him sat Ethan, calm as always, offering an encouraging smile the moment he noticed her. Suddenly, all her nervousness disappeared. The concert began. For nearly 2 hours, Olivia played with a depth and confidence she had never possessed before. The audience felt it. Every note carried something beyond technique, beyond talent, joy. When the final piece ended, silence filled the hall. Then the entire audience rose to its feet. The standing ovation seemed endless. Applause thundered through the building. But Olivia barely noticed, because her eyes were fixed on 2 people in the front row. Her family, the family she once believed she would never have. As the applause slowly faded, Olivia prepared to leave the stage. Then something unexpected happened. Ethan stood. The audience grew curious. He walked toward the grand piano. Olivia looked confused. Noah suddenly appeared beside him. The boy was holding a small velvet box. Gasps spread through the audience. Olivia immediately covered her mouth. Her eyes filled with tears. Noah handed the box to Ethan, proudly, as though he had been protecting a treasure. Ethan accepted it, then slowly lowered himself onto one knee beside the piano. The entire hall became silent. Every person watching seemed to disappear. Only the three of them remained. Ethan opened the box. Inside rested a simple diamond ring. Nothing extravagant, nothing flashy, just beautiful, just real. His voice was steady. Olivia Bennett, you taught me that love isn't about finding a perfect person. Tears rolled down Olivia's cheeks. Ethan continued. It's about choosing someone completely. Their joys, their scars, their past, the people they love. He glanced toward Noah, then back to her. I fell in love with you. A smile touched his face. And somewhere along the way, I fell in love with your entire world. The tears came faster. Around them, hundreds of people sat perfectly still, waiting, listening, hoping. Ethan held out the ring. Will you marry me? For a moment, Olivia couldn't speak. Then she laughed through her tears. The kind of laugh that comes only after surviving years of fear, years of loneliness, years of wondering whether anyone would truly accept all of her. Finally, she nodded. Yes. The answer barely left her lips before Noah threw his arms around both of them. The audience erupted into applause. Some people cried. Others laughed. Many recorded the moment. Within days, the story spread across the city. Not because a famous pianist had gotten engaged. Not because of a beautiful proposal. But because people recognized something rare. A man who didn't run from someone else's past. A woman brave enough to share the truth. And a little boy who learned that not everyone leaves. Years later, people would remember the proposal. But the real story had never been about a concert. It had always been about love. The kind of love that accepts every chapter that came before. And chooses to stay anyway. Sometimes the greatest miracle is not money, success, or fame. Sometimes the greatest miracle is when God places the right people in our lives at exactly the right time. Olivia thought her past would make her impossible to love. Noah feared that everyone important would eventually leave. And Ethan never imagined that opening his heart to one person would lead him to gain a family. Yet God often works through ordinary moments. A conversation, a chance meeting, a decision to stay when walking away would be easier. The world teaches us to search for perfect people. But God's love reminds us that real love is choosing imperfect people every single day. Real love is not pretending the past never happened. Real love is accepting the scars, the responsibilities, the mistakes, and the people who come with the heart you love. Because when you truly love someone, you don't just love who they are today. You love the journey that shaped them. You love the battles they survived. And you love the people they would do anything to protect. Perhaps someone watching this story feels unworthy because of their past. Perhaps someone believes their mistakes, their failures, or their circumstances make them harder to love. If that's you, remember this. God sees your value long before anyone else does. And the right person won't run from your story. They'll cherish it because it's the story that made you who you are. May God bless every parent raising a child alone. May God bless every person waiting for true love. May God heal every wounded heart and bring peace to every home. And may you never forget that God's plans are often far more beautiful than the fears we carry. If this story touched your heart, share where you're watching from in the comments. Tell us, what do you think true love really means? If you enjoyed this story, please like, share it with someone who needs encouragement today, and subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories of faith, hope, love, and second chances. May God bless you and your family abundantly. And may His grace, peace, and protection be with you wherever you are. God bless you.